Hello, I'm just reading and conversing. There's so many new dimensions of transformation with the word. Um, it is spectacular. It's almost incomprehensible. Yet, how can we comprehend it? And when I say that, I mean like we can. I'm like, how? God and the Holy Spirit really does transform. And it all accords. So I had recorded a whole entire talk right before this, and then it didn't record. So that's why I'm all lethargic now. Like, oh, I'm not disappointed at all. I'm just, it was good, but maybe it just wasn't time, right, for that kind. There's so much, there's new information. I don't even like seeing information. These refinements that we are doing as matured in this time, yeah, and capable of fulfillment, to the very legacy of the newly transformed man, the two in one, bringing the two together to transform into one man inside one body who is one man with Christ. And how he preached peace, he brought peace and taught peace to those who are far, and brought peace and taught peace to those who are near. And we know that he transformed everything from the bottom to the top. He brought it up, yeah. And in that, death was defeated. And in that, everything was in him. That's how he was even there at the bottom. He was full of, he took all the iniquity and sin into him, because he had no sin. So he was an empty cup that could fill the entire everlasting or eternal, infinite, never-ending cycle that was death. The blood, yeah. The sin, the wrath, the wealth, it's very worth, yeah, what sin was worth into him. That's falsities, yeah. Iniquity, every single iniquity, every single slander, every single malice, every single strip. That's a lot. And that's what brought him all the way down to the bottom. Because only the most wicked person, the most wicked is at the bottom. And who is the most wicked? Satan. In that sense, you have to think about it this way. Jesus Christ transformed everything. And it's not just the things that you want him to have transformed or have thought of, because that is discrimination. When you say everything, you have to give credit to who he is, and he is God, and God is capable of everything. And we should know to respect that. Just, yeah, justly. And he said, if Satan is divided against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? Jesus, when he was at the bottom, being life, although he was Satan for a time, for a moment, and divided Satan. And that's how he destroyed the kingdom of the air at the foundation, because there was no foundation, yeah, and brought everything up. He brought the foundations up, rebuilt, and destroyed the kingdom of the air. And then life, because he was life, swallowed death, Okay? In that sense, transforming death into death, forever eating a one everlasting, eternal, living life. Living. Yeah? And that was the body of Jesus Christ, the flesh, right? And that's why we give our life that we have in him to death. Why? Because he didn't kill death. He didn't kill Satan. He's not a murderer. That's why, like he said, Satan was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. In that moment that Jesus turned himself into the most iniquitous to be equal to that of Satan himself, like that low level, he was the only life, love murdered something, right? If Satan was a murderer, then Jesus murdered him. But see, when it's like, instead of murder taking life, it was that life took murder. There's a difference there, yeah? One is overpowering and against their will, right? Fear, terror, it's murder, yeah? But you're taking a life. If life itself gave itself to be murdered like that, it's a self-sacrifice kind of thing. And that then would be love, yeah. So love killed itself, and that's so true. That's what happened. God landed on the rock of the covenant and shattered into 1,000 pieces. Love shattered into 1,000 pieces, million pieces of salvation to everybody. But it's like death has an everlasting fulfillment of an everlasting life, but it's almost like a snake eating a Subway sandwich, and the snake is everlasting, bottomless, gaping esophagus, everlasting, right? But the Subway sandwich is everlastingly long, and like it will never end. So it's like the snake can't do anything. It's just like I'm stuck here. And in that sense, the Antichrist spirit was also like that. And what the Antichrist spirit is, if it is denying that Jesus was God in the flesh and denying the Son, so also denying the Father, that is of the Antichrist spirit. And the Antichrist spirit was given the tares. See? And that's why when you separate the wheat from the tares, yeah, it gets blown. You toss it up and the tares go drifting away. That is what the Antichrist spirit has, an everlasting continuation of tares going in. And that's from chaff. Yeah? Tares produce chaff, whereas wheat produces heads of grain to make bread, wheat, or flour. The flours, one's a chaff and one is wheat. Wheat head, I guess. But the wheat flour can be turned into flour, and you'll find it can flourish, right? But the chaff turns into weeds or something, or thorny bushes. It's like grime, and what it does is it produces wheat. And what weeds do is they have a tendency to be like locusts, a plague of locusts, to soil. Okay? And what they do, like grass, will grow and then die, yeah, under the heat of the sun. But then it always comes back up, and the next time it comes back up, it's thicker, right? And it flourishes because the soil, the way that it propagates itself and stuff, it's it knows when to, it knows its season, yeah. But with weeds, they grow whenever, wherever, as much soil. And if you grow a plot of land and just put weeds in it, the soil will go dead in way faster because weeds suck up a lot, right? A lot more. And spread out really fast. Overtaking grass, but then killing itself at its root. That's what the Antichrist gets. He swallows all the chaff, but is everlasting, because in that chaff was the root of wisdom, piercing right into the void and formlessness of that. And it can only grow. That's the light. It's almost like a root system of light running in the darkness, and it's like the sun. Well, I'm just stuck there. That's all there is left. That's how it was defeated. And the reason that death itself no longer has hold of our bodies, but we are still alive and no longer living, is because the flowers produced, yeah, it flourishes, and that flower in flourish is Flour, like how you flour and knead bread, yeah, to make bread and dough is flour. But it says the flower, he flowers and flourishes, yeah. The first flowers is like flowers of the field, Flowers. So now you understand that when Jesus said the wheat, it dies and drops, and then from one comes five, and five, 50 or whatever. During a harvest, during the season time, death to life, yeah, but making more life after death. That's the transformation of the death of the seed itself turned to powder is flour, and that flour is then can be transformed into bread, and bread is baked in an oven. And the only way that this everlasting component could be sustained is with the living water, right? And the living water is a thing that will constantly feed and turn the season fast. So it'll be almost like flourishing, yeah, which is Flourishing. You're flourishing to be turned into something completely new, because the consuming fire and the consuming water like bakes you, right? But that's an everlasting thing, and so it's not about you now dying and only to live again and then die to drop more seeds to live again to die. Okay, now it's about there was a final death, and everything that was you in the seeds produced, right? That was your heart, soul, mind, accorded man, capable of being with God and God with man, and Holy Spirit and new transformation. It's about then able to transform out of that whole death into life, get thrown in with the all-consuming fire, mixed with the all living water that makes like a baking oven, right? That's the way I like to think it. And you then are bread, no longer even of the earth, out of the ground, and something that can be eaten. You can't eat. I guess you can, but it's not going to benefit you in a good way, right? Now that final thing was the bread of life. Yeah. And that is what death, all consuming death, eats, like the Subway sandwich. But that is of you, because the Holy Spirit and that Christ, the christening of the Holy Spirit, the sealing of it, yeah, that Christ likeness coming up and through and becoming you, like how Jesus was praying in Gethsemane and his blood looked like, or his sweat, looked like blood droplets. That was his inside coming out, and he was the inside of God that came out. So it's like, what is that? What was coming out? It was like pure salvation coming out of him. It came up and through, and that's what's happening with us, with our salvation, pushing it up and through. And that living water is that salvation, like I said. And it keeps baking the bread, because death is constantly eating it, but it has the likeness of Jesus Christ. So it's a living bread, or a bread of life mixed in with you, right? And that's what death is eating, and it's an everlasting Subway sandwich. That's what I'm trying to say. Jeez. What I'm saying is, in this talk, listen to all the fulfillments that has happened, because that's what we know is how everything needs to be fulfilled in order for things to come about, right? And there's been a lot on the spiritual side that I can see that has been fulfilled, that we may have yet to discover. Some things can be taken off the table with what we are waiting for, with certain parts of coming to the end of the age and inheriting the kingdom, going home, having God with us, having heaven on earth, being heavenly finally. All men, is that if we can know that it's been fulfilled, that means it's something that we can tell people who are waiting to see this fulfillment. We tell them about it, and it means that they can now partake of it, and they don't have to wait. We've just brought them the truth, right? Because a lot of people are still waiting for something, but some things have been fulfilled. I'm like, why are you? Don't wait for it if it's been fulfilled. Like, even if you have extra oil, you still want to be smart about it and conserve. So, like, don't be sitting there when it's already, the thing is already done, and you're just burning oil. Go on to the next thing, like that. And so, I mean, we know that death has been fulfilled, and that's all right. But the Antichrist spirit, okay? It's almost like he is here because Jesus is real, Like, he's a real, like, a spiritual fleshly spiritual. He's a real person like us, like that. Like a man. He's a man, and that means there is a man person who is going to be the son of like the one son of perdition, right? As he stands in the place, the abomination, right? In the most holy place. The Antichrist spirit gets chafed. The Holy Spirit and the Antichrist spirit. It's funny that it's not called the anti-Holy Spirit or something. That's the thing. There is no anti-Holy Spirit. It's impossible. There's only the Holy Spirit, and that's all there is. Oh, it's brilliant. So that's where Christ literally is. Christ, the Spirit of God, is giving himself up to the Antichrist spirit. But one is everlasting with God, is God, and one is everlasting not with God. So how does that happen, huh? It's like an everlasting darkness going backwards with the everlasting light going forward. And the everlasting light is faster than the everlasting darkness. So if both have no end, but eventually it's just going to be everlasting light. Because light's going to be able to consume all the darkness from everlasting to everlasting. And it did. That's why the darkness looks like the light, and then the light will look like the darkness. But that's the thing. After the darkness looks like the light, and then the darkness is the light, not that, oh, the light is darkness. No, the darkness has been transformed into the light. And then you have the light of life. See how this works? That's the light of life right there. It's an all-consuming light. God's the all-consuming fire. Christ is the all-consuming light. If there's an all-consuming light, does that hurt? No, it's graceful. That's why it's a light burden. Get it? That's why he says, I have a light burden. The burden is that it has to just shine. Or consume darkness, but not really consume it, just needs to just go forward. That's hilarious. Ooh, yeah. Wow, look at that. Wow. Watch this again. So I figured out how to combat the wasps around my house in a peaceful way. Right? A couple months ago, I was actually a prisoner in my house because there was like a gang of wasps. There was like 3 and 4 of them. And they would, maybe there was 7 of them, because 3 would be out back, 4 would be out here, or vice versa. And every time I'd step out, they would hover all in a line, like a wall, right? And hover there, like looking like helicopters. And then all at once, in a single line, come at me. And they locked me in the house all day. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't go outside to read the Bible. I couldn't go outside at all. I was stuck in the house. And so, that was kind of weird, right? Then there's been wasps around, and I'm always like wary of them. So it's bothering me, and I don't want to, but I don't want to kill them either, because they don't have no place to go. Like, where else? What are they gonna do? Not be wasps, right? So finally, and I don't want to spray chemicals. So I went online, and they said, all you have to do is make like a fake wasp nest. with brown paper bag, and all you do is blow up the paper bag, so it's like a wasp nest, like a bundle, and you just stick it on the wall, right? And so this is what I did. Do you see that? I got brown paper bags all up. I got one under there. I got one in the front there. I got one on the side there because the wasps were as taking over everything as that, right? And there has been no wasps. It worked. See? We bring peace.